I still remember the morning when my life shifted, not with thunder or spectacle, but with the soft click of a door opening, a moment so ordinary that anyone else might have missed its quiet importance. Back then I was younger, tangled in my own ambitions, convinced that life was a race I had to win before anyone else even reached the track. I believed I knew everything. Experience, however, has a way of arriving like an uninvited guest who brings the exact truth you need. It started on a chilly weekday. I was hurrying to my office, heart thumping like a restless bird. My company had announced a new project, and I was desperate to lead it. Not because I believed I could do it best, but because I wanted the recognition, an applause that existed only in my mind. On my way, I stopped at a local cafe, more out of habit than hunger. The place was dim and familiar, with the smell of roasted coffee weaving through the air like a spell. As I waited in line, tapping my foot impatiently, my eyes fell on an old man seated at a corner table. His back was slightly bent, his clothes were plain and worn, and his tea sat untouched in front of him, steam fading like a disappearing memory. Something about him tugged at my attention, though I couldn't explain why. There was an unusual stillness around him, as if time had politely paused to keep him company. My order arrived, and I rushed out, trying to push thoughts of him aside. I had no time for distractions. But as I stepped outside, I noticed the old man struggling to stand, his hands trembling as he reached for a walking stick resting against his chair. I paused. Just for a second. Long enough for my conscience to whisper, "Help him," but I walked past it. I told myself I was late. That he had probably gotten by all his life without my help. That strangers weren't my responsibility. These excuses walked with me like shadows until I reached the office. That day didn't go the way I hoped. The project I wanted so badly was given to someone else, a colleague who wasn't the loudest or the most ambitious, but who had a reputation for being thoughtful, reliable, and kind. I remember sitting at my desk, frustration stabbing at my chest. Why didn't people notice my efforts? Why did hard work go unseen? As I nursed my disappointment, my manager approached me unexpectedly. She placed a file on my desk and said, "You work fast. But sometimes speed makes us miss things. You're talented, no doubt. But leadership isn't just about leading projects. It's about leading people." Her words felt like a riddle wrapped in a quiet reprimand. Before I could respond, she added, "Come to the community center this weekend. There's something I want you to see." The weekend arrived reluctantly for me. I woke up grumpy, dragged myself through breakfast, and reached the community center only because my curiosity refused to stay home. The building stood modestly at the end of a narrow street, its walls painted with fading murals of children holding books and planting trees. Inside, the manager was already there, helping a group of volunteers organize supplies. But what caught me off guard wasn't her, it was the old man from the cafe, sitting in a chair near the entrance. He recognized me instantly and smiled with a warmth I didn't believe I deserved. I walked up to him cautiously, a quiet knot in my throat. "You're here," he said, as if he had expected me. I nodded. "You come here often?" He chuckled gently. "Every week. I teach children who can't afford school." Before I could respond, a group of kids rushed toward him. Their eyes sparkled when they saw him. They hugged him, tugged at his sleeves, and bombarded him with questions. He greeted each with patient affection. It was clear, they adored him. I watched all this unfold like someone peeking into a world stitched with threads I had never valued: patience, kindness, time given freely without expecting trophies. Later, when the children settled, I sat beside him. He looked at me thoughtfully, as if reading the restlessness bottled within me. "You seem troubled," he said. "I just feel like nothing I do is enough," I admitted. "I work hard. I try to achieve more. But it always feels like someone else gets ahead." He nodded slowly, stirring his tea. "Do you know why I sit in that cafe every morning?" I shrugged. 50 years ago, he said, I used to be just like you. Running, pushing, trying to be seen. One morning, I rushed past a man who dropped his groceries on the street. I was late for a meeting. I told myself that someone else would help him. I didn't stop. He paused, and something unspoken passed through his eyes. That man fell while trying to pick his things. Nothing major, just a small injury. But that moment stayed with me. It taught me that in trying to win the world, I was losing pieces of myself. The room around us felt strangely quiet. Life isn't measured by the projects you lead or the applause you chase, he continued. It's measured by the moments you choose to do what is right, even when no one is watching. His words swirled around me like soft wind rearranging forgotten leaves. That he leaned closer and said, "You saw me struggling the other day." My breath caught. "Yes," I whispered. "I did." "And you walked past," he said gently, without accusation, only truth. "Yes." He patted my shoulder. "That was your lesson, not your failure. Life gives us these small windows. What we choose to do inside them defines us far more than any award." I didn't know what to say. My heart felt strangely lighter, as if a tight rope around it had finally loosened. The rest of the day, I helped the volunteers, played with the children, and listened to stories the old man shared, stories not about success, but significance. Stories that stitched humility into ambition, balance into drive. By evening, something inside me had quietly rearranged itself. I walked home not with the hurry of someone chasing a finish line, but with the calm of someone finally noticing the scenery. The next morning, I returned to the same cafe. The old man wasn't there yet, but the seat he usually occupied felt like a reminder carved into time. When he finally arrived, I stood up and helped him sit before he could even reach for his chair. He smiled. "You learned." "I'm trying," I replied, and in that small exchange, I felt a shift far greater than the one I had been chasing. From then on, little by little, the world looked different. I started noticing people, their tired eyes, their quiet struggles, their unspoken hopes. I offered help where I could. Sometimes it was a meaningful gesture, sometimes it was something tiny, but even small lights can soften a dark room. At work, my manager noticed the change. I no longer rushed for recognition. I contributed thoughtfully. I listened. I offered support instead of competition. Leadership, I learned, wasn't about being in front, it was about bringing others forward with you. Months later, I was given a major project, not because I demanded it, but because I had grown into someone worth trusting. And strangely, the applause I once chased felt less important than the journey that had brought me there. Looking back, that one morning, when I walked past an old man I should have helped, became the seed of the greatest lesson life ever gave me. Success means little without humanity, achievement means little without compassion, and life means little if it is lived only for ourselves. That old man never lectured me. He simply reflected the truth I had ignored. His quiet presence, his gentle wisdom, and the simple sincerity in his life taught me something no textbook ever could. The true measure of a person is not what they gain, but what they give. And now, when I walk through life, I keep that lesson tucked inside me like a small lantern, bright enough to remind me where the path truly is.